Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to Tuesdays at 8, our weekly Facebook Live event. This week, we're going to be talking about creating new family traditions, and you are so in for a great treat tonight. I actually have two people I'm speaking to tonight, and that's Katie and Valerie. They're going to be telling us the story of creation to the Christmas tree through the use of one of our resources called the Jesse Tree Project. So first, let's talk about, I'm going to show our video that I show every time we start, which is who and what is visual faith? Welcome, Katie and Valerie. As I said, tonight we're going to be talking about telling the story from creation to the Christmas tree using one of our phenomenal resources that actually, and that's why they're on the show, Katie and Valerie created. But let me tell you a little about who they are first. So first we have Katie, who is on the left with the beautiful scarf around her and the big, bright, fun smile. Katie Helmreich is an artist and an illustrator and regularly contributes to the Visual Church Year Project and other visual faith ministry resources that we have. She enjoys leading visual faith art classes regularly, helping others to share in the joy of this experience. She lives in Michigan with her engineer, firefighter husband, and their 3 kiddos. And then we have Valerie on the right with the glasses. That'll be an easy way to remember. Valerie is our educational development consultant for Visual Faith Ministry, and she enjoys sharing visual faith practices with church workers, lay people, friends, family, and her students. Valerie is the wife of a pastor, the mother of 4 school-age children, and a 7th, 8th grade teacher at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in, is it Frankentrust? That's actually the name of the town. Because I thought maybe you spelled it wrong. I thought it was isn't Frankenmuth the name of a town there too?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, so we welcome both of you. Thank you for getting together. And how wonderful is that they actually, you go to the same church, is that correct?
Yep.
And then you're friends. So that's even better. So Valerie, before we get started and you share your wonderful ideas, resources, and your passion and heart, could you open us in prayer, please?
Oh, absolutely. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. I thank you for this technology. I thank you for the opportunity for us to engage and have a conversation and share about the Jesse's tree. Lord, let whatever happens tonight be to your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. So before you start telling us about the Jesse Tree Project, what I'd like to hear, and I know you could probably go on for a very long time, tell us about your introduction, or how did you get involved with visual faith as a practice and then as a ministry?
Go ahead. I had the opportunity to hear Connie and Pat speak in 2015 at a conference, and I went in there and they were talking about visual prayer, and I was just hooked. So I went home, and that was 5 years ago, and I just started visually praying in September of 2015, and that was the catalyst. And then in spring of 2016, I started Bible journaling, and it's just kind of been a journey since then. In 2017, I was asked to be a coach, and I really enjoy sharing it with people.
Awesome. And how about you, Katie?
Well, I kind of stumbled into it very gradually. My mom was one of the ones I first saw really living out visual faith. She was introduced to it at a pastor's wife conference. And at first I watched what she was doing and thought, I do not have time. There are little people in my house. There's no way. But then I think it was after you moved in, then I started seeing how actually a busy person can do this too. It just looks different. And watching how visual practices can help a person focus and make time and remember that they had time, then it started to really impact me. And I've been doing it a lot the last 3 years.
Oh, that's wonderful. So my first question, because I've seen your work, were you both artists before you started doing all this? Because you both can draw.
I have been an artist since I can remember, and I went to school for art and for business. So I have had art training in the past.
Oh, okay. That's why you're so good at it. Okay, Valerie, same with you?
No, art was always my favorite subject in grade school. And I took one art class in high school. It was sculpture and ceramics. And then I thought, well, it's just not, I'm just too practical. That's why I thought I was too practical. So I studied English. And education is in my background. I enjoy teaching, but the art thing, that's always something that I've just enjoyed on the side, doodling. But it turns out as Katie would tell you, it's a skill that you develop over time.
Absolutely. Well, that's wonderful. Well, can you tell us a little bit about this project? I'm going to flip I'm going to show everybody what you're going to talk about so that they'll understand what this is. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is Jesse Tree Devotions, because I grew up and I never heard this. I never heard of the Jesse Tree at all. I was not raised in a house of faith. So tell us about what is that all about?
Katie can probably hit more on what Jesse Tree, the background is, and then I can tell you how it stumbled onto Visual Faith Ministries webpage.
Perfect.
Yeah. The Jesse Tree tradition is actually hundreds of years old. It goes back to the medieval times. The idea was that there are so many illiterate people that it was important for the church to give the people icons or pictures to help them hear the stories, interpret where they belong in scripture, and how this is not just a series of fairy tales. This is one cohesive story from creation all the way through the second coming that we're all looking forward to. So the Jesse Tree icons or stories were in stained glass, they were in tapestries, they were in sculptures. This was a part of tradition for a long time. I hadn't really known that until more recently. My brother is my eldest godfather, and so he put together a list of the readings. So it's just a sampling of stories throughout the Old Testament that point to Jesus' lineage and the fulfilled promises. And he had little ornaments that he made out of felt. Most of them have fallen apart by now, which is part of the reason why we did this. But it was amazing to me to see that the kids, once they were putting this image, this ornament on the tree together with this story that we were reading together, they knew it. They understood the story.
Oh, that's great. Go ahead, Valerie.
So then for it to come to Visual Faith resources, you can't just take something that was already existed and throw it on your own website and say, here you go. You have to kind of recreate original work. So it's a 2-part, well, actually 3. If you want to put that picture back up, Diane. So this middle section is this Jesse Tree devotion. So there are 24 devotions that get you from December 1st to Christmas Eve, telling the story of Jesus's birth from Genesis. It's all, like Katie said, one cohesive story. On the left then are their ornaments, their illustrations. Katie made beautiful illustrations to accompany these devotions that are telling the story. And then on the right are the same ornaments, the same illustrations, but Pat Meyer took the time to color them. We realized in our visual faith community that there are some people that just don't have the time to color. Pat is a gifted colorist with colored pencils, and so we thought, hey, let's make this available too. So whether you print them out to color them yourself or you print them out already colored, the idea is that you would cut them out, maybe hole punch them, and make them available to be hung in your house while you're reading these devotions.
Okay, awesome. How about if I show a couple pictures of that? I'm going to change the order what we had planned because it's just fitting a little bit better with what we're talking about. Okay, so here is. Go ahead and share what this is.
Yes, this is just a couple examples of how it might look like you using these devotions in your home. So the first day of December, you'd have one ornament on your wall or on a garland or any other place that you want to put them. And then as a family or as an individual, read through the devotions, you add one each day. And then as my family begins, we review quickly what each of these are and why it matters. And then we read the next installment for that day.
So I appreciate these pictures because, one of them is just these ornaments stuck on the wall, right, with Scotch tape or washi tape. You don't have to have a tree. You can make your own tree. And then the garland is a beautiful idea. It depends, do you live in an apartment? Are you in a classroom? What does your house look like? What's going to work best for you?
Okay. And here's another example. Let's look at this example.
My family, we usually have up this tree that's on the left. Looks very sad and bare at the beginning of December, but by the end of the month, we can hardly fit anything else on it. Usually we have to replace the hangers because they've been taken off and moved around so many times, but it's right there at the dinner table, and it's out of sight, out of mind. So it's right there in the middle of our lives, and we're able to keep in touch with it that way.
And that's, Katie brings up a good point with the visual. So the ornaments themselves are little pictures that illustrate what the devotions are, the visual of remembering. Oh yes, the fall, the creation, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But then the actual visual of the tree existing in your house. You remember to do the devotions because here is this tree that keeps staring at you.
Yes.
Right. And the kids look forward to it, or your classroom looks forward to it, or your small group, or whoever it is that you're doing this with.
And I love the example of the wreath because at my age and my time of life, I don't put up a Christmas tree anymore, but I really like the wreath. Putting up a wreath would really work for me. So we want everybody to understand how you do this is really what works in your particular life. And then you have another example of, let's just look at this one. Can you share this one really quick?
Well, we've done the Jesse Tree readings and these devotions for several years in my family, and we just don't need more of the ornaments. So last year we used this advent calendar that I think Pat Meyer drew a couple years back already. So instead of making new ornaments, we decided to do the same images or the same ideas on this tree. So each of us had one, and this is the one that I drew last year. So all of the icons are there, the stories are there, but it's on one 8.5 by 11 piece of paper.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, I like that idea because if you don't want to cut these out and you don't want to decorate your house, doing that, we're showing you so many different ways to use the resource, but the resource is not the most important. What is the most important is that you actually do this practice of the devotions and in preparing for December 24th. So people get an idea of what does this actually look like. The girls have decided that they would share a little bit about how you would use one of the devotions. So I'm going to put up the first one, that's creation.
Sure. So what Diane's going to show now is a series of the ornaments, just a smattering, not all 24 of them, but the devotions are, so I wrote the devotion. I was the author of the devotions. It starts out with a Bible verse, and then there's a little chunk of text that is the devotion. And then there's going to be an image that goes along with it right in the booklet. So you wouldn't even need to necessarily print out the ornaments. Katie's illustrations are also in the booklet. But yeah, the story of Jesus actually starts in creation. So John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So we know that Jesus existed way before even the beginning. So God sees that there's nothing and decides that let's make us something. And so he does, and it's beautiful and it's perfect and it's in its creation. So the story of Jesus actually starts way back at creation, that Jesus wasn't created by God, but he was begotten of the Father, and they existed all together.
Wonderful. Okay, here's another one.
So then we get to Genesis 3, and it's the fall of man. So Adam and Eve are created, and Satan is a sneaky serpent, and he convinces Eve. He says, he places doubt in her mind. Did God really say that? And she takes a bite of this fruit, and the creation falls. And because of this, all of creation is impacted, humanity and the whole world. And so God says, because he's not going to leave his creation alone, I will send a savior to redeem for a redemption. And so the gospel first shows up in Genesis 3.
Wonderful. Really nice drawing too. Okay, let's talk about Abraham.
So there are a couple more ornaments before we get to Abraham. But
I'm sorry. Which one?
Right, yes. Right.
Oh, okay.
So Abraham, so God looks at all of his people, or the people on the earth, and he chooses Abraham. And he tells Abraham, from you I will make many descendants, and from your line and lineage the Savior is going to come. And someone just recently told this to me. When God picked Abraham, it wasn't like he picked a person and said, not for the rest of the world, just for you. It was more like he had a rock in his hand and it was a pond, and he chose the spot to hit the rock, but he knew that the ripple was going to be able to impact the whole world. So it's from Israel that Jesus comes, but he is for the whole world. It was just through that group of people, which is a really cool way of thinking and talking.
Oh, absolutely. So what do you want to do next? I've got.
Do you have the Moses one?
Yeah.
Which one?
The Red Sea.
Yes.
So Abraham happens in Genesis 12, and then we have Isaac and Jacob, and then that's the 12 tribes of Israel, and then we get to Exodus, and this is the story of Moses. So for Moses, we have the burning bush, we have the 10 commandments, and we have the parting of the Red Sea. The parting of the Red Sea is so important to the story of Jesus because these are the people who are in slavery, and God is leading them out to the promised land, to the place where he has promised. And when they walk through the Red Sea, they are being delivered from bondage. And we see that in our baptism. As we walk through the waters of baptism, we are being called we are his own people. Salvation is yours in your baptism and your faith in Jesus. And so Moses is a Jesus-like figure in the Old Testament. What he does in the people of Israel, this old covenant, Jesus fulfills in the new covenant in the wilderness. And now I'm just rambling.
No, you're doing great.
But the idea is that the Old Testament stories are not just a smattering of useless facts and figures that are bumbling around. No. It's one cohesive story that gets us all the way to Jesus.
Well, I just have to interrupt here for 1 second because, first of all, let's talk about people who don't know anything about the Bible or not raising their children like that, who a bunch of people just think Christmas is, let's get presents, let's open a bunch of presents. So we've talked about preparing our hearts for Thanksgiving, and now you're talking about let's prepare our hearts for the real reason we're celebrating Christmas is Jesus' birth.
Yes.
And if you've had any experience or exposure to that, it's typically always focused in the New Testament. Here's the story in Luke, right? Most of it's in Luke of the story. So you kind of just get focused on that part. What I'm loving about what you're sharing is it's not just that one little part. Whoa, okay, it's really this very long story, but you're making it fun and exciting to really hear it. And then it makes sense of how it all kind of lines up and goes together. So I just had to say that because that's really awesome.
No, and Diane, exactly what you express is what happens then in our families, in our classrooms, where the kids, our children, get to see these stories and they finally see how it all lines up together and points to Jesus. But kind of for the kiddos, instead of this aha moment, it's like, oh yeah, this was it all along, wasn't it? You know, if you're raised this foundationally, then this is in scripture talks like this too, you know. Inscribe these words on your heart, pass this down to generations, tell your children, tell the story. And that's what we're doing. We're telling the story. We're telling the story of Jesus. So Advent is the coming of Jesus. That's what the days leading up to Christmas are, the coming. So we look forward to his coming as a babe in the manger, but we also, and more importantly, looking forward to his second coming when he returns on the final day.
Awesome. So do you want to tell us the story of Ruth Sweet? You're doing such a good job. I'm having fun listening.
You want to tell the story of Ruth Sweet?
Okay. All right. So the story of Ruth at first seems like it's sort of out of the middle of nowhere because all of a sudden we're in a foreign country. This person we've never heard about, random family. She's not an Israelite. She's a Moabite, but she married into an Israelite family. And because of the witness of her mother-in-law, she comes to faith. And then even though all this drama and horrible stuff happens to the family, she ends up following her mother-in-law, then back to her homeland. And in this situation, nobody there would even think about accepting a foreign woman. She wasn't supposed to have married this guy in the first place. But God works in those circumstances. And so he used that as an example of how then this sinner, this sinful person through faith is being redeemed. So her mother-in-law's relative then marries Ruth,
Boaz,
and brings her into the family now.
Kinsman
now
redeemer.
She's not.
I know this stuff too. Yeah.
She gets to be the great-grandmother of King David.
Yeah, we were just talking about the other day. So Boaz and Ruth have Obed. Obed has Jesse. This is the whole Jesse tree. Jesse has David, and David is the king of Israel, right? And so Jesus comes from the house and the line of David.
And Ruth.
See, you're learning so much tonight. Okay, and then we skip a whole bunch. Don't forget there's 24. And so we decided to put up the very last one, isn't it? So, okay, tell us this story of how this goes.
I think this one, it's an empty manger. There's no baby in there because we're still waiting. And I don't remember exactly what the passage was for that one. Let me look it up quick.
Katie's going to look it up in the devotion.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's Luke 2.
Yeah. We talked about the birth of our rescuer and the kind of like in the Ruth story, completely unexpected circumstances. And yet God is working there because he has a plan. And even though it's going to be in a stable and into a manger and without all of the family around Mary, God is bringing himself to us in this circumstance.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want you to share a little bit about before COVID, when we were allowed to get together. You were able to do this at your school. Is that correct? Was it a family event at your school? So tell us a little bit about that, and I'll show the pictures then.
Sure. It took place at our school, but it was a church event. It was for our church families. And Katie and I secured a Thrive in Action grant, which was $250 that we could put towards something. And so we got the paper to print it out. We got colored pencils and hole punches and all the supplies that a family would need to be able to create this. The idea behind the event was we're going to get you set up for success for Advent. So families came in. I think there were about 30 people, about 7 families. This was 2 years ago. And boy, they sat down, they colored, they talked, they discussed, they laughed. I think we fed them some pizza, and they just had an opportunity to get the ornaments ready and together.
That's so wonderful. Well, obviously, I think what I want to make sure we stress tonight is I don't have little children with me. I mean, I would go see my grandchildren, but talk a little bit more about who is this project for and how can all different situations use the project?
Well, when we were putting this together, when I was experiencing this for the first time, it was through family devotions. But at that point, my kids were so small, it was really it was for me.
Yes.
Oh, Katie, be honest.
Remembering that, look, Jesus is in all of these stories, and that all of the things that are happening in the New Testament are a fulfillment of all the things that happened in the Old Testament. And watching how all of these things equal each other, both sides going back and forth, it was fascinating. And I put together things I'd never seen before, and I've been in the Word for a while, but I just hadn't made these connections. And so going through this story one at a time and watching where Jesus turned up in each of them was fascinating. And it continues to amaze me.
Yeah, I would say there's different ways that you could use it, whether or not you use the ornaments, whether or not you even use the devotions. If you just grab the verses that are listed in this devotional booklet and give yourself time and space to doodle or sketch. Another thing that you could do, though, if you want to hang out with the ornaments and you're not with in person with someone, do a Zoom call, do a FaceTime, and every night, grandma and grandkids, they get to hang things up on you could do something that you're doing it together, or you just have a conversation with your grandkids or your kiddos the next day. Hey, remember when we hung up the Noah's Ark? Tell me the story of Noah's Ark and why does that matter? And where do we see Jesus in the Noah's Ark story? You're just having conversations. It's a catalyst for a story.
Okay. So we've talked about individuals can do this totally on your own. You can do it by, I'm just going to recap what you said. You can do it by reading the devotions, using the devotion book. If you don't want to do any visual faith, coloring, you don't have to do any of that. It's just telling that story and looking at Advent and participating in Advent in a very different manner, not just being in the New Testament. So individuals can do it. You can do it as a family, right? You can do it as a family when you have the children in your home. You can then do it as grandparents, because I love your idea. It could be phone calls or Zoom calls, and all grandparents know how to do that now. You could have a Zoom call and walk through that. You can do it in a school. I
Yeah,
sound like
if
Dr.
you're
Do it here, do it there, do it everywhere.
Yeah, if you're a teacher and you're about to embark on Advent with your classroom, this could be your devotional for your classroom. You could have your students color the ornaments. You could even have your students research the ornaments, and then they come up with their own. Hey, how does this story? I mean, it's an enormous learning tool.
Mhm.
Our school actually, Emmanuel Frankentrost, we're going to do this as our Christmas program, the Jesse Tree. And they took the song, Oh Christmas Tree, and they changed it into Oh Jesse Tree, Oh Jesus Tree. I haven't memorized it yet, but it's a song.
There's time.
Okay, you're going to have to record that and then play it in the Facebook group, because I want to hear it. That sounds perfect.
Maybe
I love it.
I'll get my 7th and 8th graders to record it, and then I'll play
That's
it.
what I'm saying. Record it.
And we're not going through all 24. We're going through 12. We're going to hit the 12 of the highlights, but we're going to make ornaments. We're going to put it on a tree. The kids are going to recite. They're going to tell the story, because that's what this is all about.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's great. Okay, I think I've shown all of your, and then we talked about the last other thing. If you don't want to make, you can use the devotional and do the Advent calendar.
Yes.
So we've basically got you covered at Visual Faith. And I haven't looked at the comments, but Connie was going to be on tonight and sharing the actual link for all that. And I also wanted to let people know that if you have any people that speak Spanish only, this document is in Spanish. So it's available in that. So let me go into our comments. Oh my gosh, we've got so many. Hold on. I've got to let's see. Whoa. Okay. I have to read really fast. Let's see. Hello from Michigan. Hello. Okay. And then she has the links. I'm sorry. Okay. Here's a good one that we should show.
So this comment is from Jenny Long. My fam used this resource 2 years ago, college age, high school age daughters who were all eager to color an ornament each evening. Nice. We displayed ornaments on a garland and had the best devotion. Hey! Had the best devotions that Advent season. Thank you, Katie and Jenny. You're welcome.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Eden wants you to do what? Oh, maybe she was saying that back to Jenny.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what she was doing. Okay. Let's see. I've got this one.
Yeah, Karen Hunter. Hello, Karen, says that's a great idea for in a classroom. I would agree. And I think that it would translate from the very young preschool all the way up to high school, college, because you can change the depth of the story depending on the depth of learning.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think there's so many schools now that are suddenly switching back to virtual learning. This would be something, the ornaments are so compact on these sheets that it would be an easy resource for families to print at home and be able to follow along with their religion lessons, Advent devotions through school that way too.
Excellent.
Pat Meyer says, right there in the kitchen, so you remember to do it. Yes, the remembering. And Pat, we want to say thank you too for coloring those ornaments to make that readily available to people who have a printer who can print and color, and you just print them right out.
And they're beautiful.
Sure. Bev says, love all the different examples of ways to use this resource. So helpful to get different ideas. Different things work at different times, different years. Jesus is the same, but our time is always changing.
Yeah, so don't heap this on as another more things to do.
No.
Adapt it to your environment. What works for you? Yes.
Absolutely. There you go, Val.
Jenny Long, wish I was a 7th grader in my class. We have a good time.
You got that right.
And Anne says, the Jesse tree is also our legacy. I think I may put my icons on the tags to go on my Thanksgiving tree. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are part of the story, right? So just as the people in the Old Testament were waiting for the incarnate Christ to come, we are waiting for him to return. So yeah, we're part of the story too.
Absolutely. And that's such a great point. Thanks.
All right. Eden says, the Christmas story is so much more full when we learn about the promised Savior and can celebrate the fulfillment of those promises. Absolutely. This is not a random thing. It's not a random guy. Every detail of his life was foretold, and to know that, yeah, this was the plan.
And I thought of one thing is that Pat talked about this last week of having the Christmas, oh my gosh, what did we call it? The Christmas book where she tells the Christmas story.
Yeah.
The Luke 2, I couldn't remember it. The Luke 2 project is a way to witness non-Christians. This totally is a way because quote, they probably have heard some of these stories, but they don't understand it. And it's a random this. And of course, I know, the Adam and Eve story. I know all that, but they don't know how it fits all together. So it could be a great witnessing tool for that. Okay, I've got a really good comment now.
Here's Pat again. To have this hanging in your home where guests might ask what it is a fantastic witness tool to understand why we celebrate a Christmas centered on Jesus. Explaining the pictures is such a sweet and natural way of telling the story. And Pat, people coming into the home and then to listen to your kids tell the story, how amazing. Sometimes we think when we're teaching our kids that we're just speaking into the void.
Yes.
Is any of this sticking? And it is. We are a story-oriented people. Our brains work best when we're hearing stories. Yes.
Okay, here's another good idea.
Connie says some churches are making this project as a pickup project to do for families. That's a great idea.
That's a fantastic idea.
So what would that look like? You two answer that. What would that look like?
So a church, because they're equipped with copiers, they could be running the copies. I would really, if you're a church and you've got access to it, run the ornaments on cardstock. That would help out a family big time. And then, boy, if you had that Thrive in Action grant, stick some supplies right into the bag.
Yeah, we did some cardstock or scrapbook paper on the back of the ornaments for some of them.
Kind of reinforce them.
Yep. Helps them stick. Printing out the booklets is another helpful thing.
If the church can print out the booklets, that would be an enormous help. Because on a home printer, this is tougher, but boy, just to run it through a giant machine.
Done.
That would be really good.
Put them in a Ziploc bag, some Crayola crayons, you're off to the races.
So one of the things I want to make sure people remember, because this is my big thing when I teach people, when you were talking about putting scrapbook paper on the back, I think that's nice and might look pretty. But what is so awesome, because I have much older kids, is when I get out stuff that they made when they were 7 or 8. So on the back of these, you should put, if any of your children colored in, they should put their name, how old they were, and the year. Because trust me, they are going to be so excited. I made this. Whoa, I can't believe. It's just a really fun, wonderful experience to pull that out. And then they can.
And Diane, if you did this years and years and years over the years, you could eventually, over 25 years, you could have an ornament from each of the, you could watch the color get more intricate. Fun. You know what I mean? It's kind of a cool idea. There's no right or wrong way to do this.
Oh, right. The other thing that I was thinking of doing, I didn't do this with my kids when they were little, but anyway, if I had little kids and then when they get to be teenagers, they will probably be like, oh my gosh, don't show that. I was a little kid. But then you just have some blanks and say, okay, no problem. Go ahead and color it now. So you can actually put them together. Do you know what I'm saying? Put them together. Well, here's when you're 7 and here's when you're 17.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Then they get to have that. So I like that. Okay, here's another good example.
Connie says, sometimes we have to remember ourselves first, the story of Jesus, so we can better teach it. Yes, that is very true. You only can teach what you know. And so we are all students of the Bible, right? There's always more to learn. And by digging into these stories, remembering, refreshing, reminding, making new connections that you hadn't made before, it's powerful.
I think it's important to practice saying these things too, because you can understand something, but until you have to actually verbalize it, you don't notice maybe where the gaps are. And when you actually practice talking about it, even just for 20 seconds, it attaches itself to your brain and your language better, I think.
I find too, one of the stories in here is the ram. It's when Abraham is being asked to sacrifice his one and only son, Isaac, the son that is supposed to be this descendant to this great nation. And when I was a kid, I identified with Isaac. What the heck? What the heck? And now that I'm a parent, I identify with Abraham. You're asking me to do what? But God did that for us. He sacrificed his son. And so the story is so amazing. So you approach these stories different depending on where you are in life. So Jamie says, we're sharing the Advent resource via email that can be used at home. And this is one of the resources we'll be sharing. Thank you, Jamie.
Great.
Thank you.
That's a really good one, too.
Anne says, I like this being a catalyst for conversations with family or loved ones about Jesus throughout the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's always a good review, no matter how familiar or unfamiliar we are.
Because how do you start the story of Rahab other than seeing?
That's a random one to pull out of nowhere. Let's start.
You got that right.
Jenny says, while we used this resource as a family 2 years ago in my personal devos that year, I used an Ann Voskamp's book to add depth to our Jesse tree. Yes. Can't remember the title of her book, though. Let me look. And I would call that layering, right? Anytime you can take a resource, pull in a different resource, but it's all pointing you in the same direction. Boy, I think that's super powerful.
It's very powerful.
Eden says, you do such an amazing job of resourcing your church family with visual faith materials. I think that the two of us have found, wow, my family needs something. Let's make something. You ready?
Hey, if we need it, maybe someone else needs it. That's really where it comes from.
Yeah, they're now telling you the down and dirty reality of the two of them.
Well, and I'll be honest, I knew that God had equipped me to write devotions. I thought I could handle writing devotions. I did not think I could handle illustrating. And Katie might think the reverse, right? Or at least at that time.
I did at the time.
Which is so funny because now you have grown so much as a writer, and I have
And
grown
you've
so much
as an illustrator.
So you have to bring it all to balance because you're right. You're way over here, and I can only do this part. God always brings you in so that you're fully equipped.
Well, and to collaborate, and iron sharpens iron, and to bounce ideas off each other. So with the illustrations, Katie would say, I'm going to go this direction with this visual, and I'll say, let me see what I can do with that devotion, or we would do the reverse. And how can we build off of what we're doing?
Okay, Jenny remembered.
Oh yeah, Jenny, The Greatest Gift by Ann Voskamp. So excellent, yeah.
And then we have
Candace.
Hello, Candace.
This is good.
Nice legacy of grandparents record reading the devotion for years ahead.
What a great idea.
That would be great. That would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be awesome? That would warm my heart to have my grandparents' voice to, really remember. And they were saying something really nice that you could use over and over again. Oh, good.
We have someone who said, this may be the year we make our own. Hey, good luck. Congratulations. Blessings.
No matter what it looks like, it's going to be fine. Oh, boy. All right. Glenn Faye, I'm going to assume that's both of you. Our church here in Virginia Beach brings Sunday school to children in their homes. They have a lesson and a project for each Sunday of the month, including things like a cake mix and a can of frosting, or a small pumpkin and crayons or other items to enhance the lesson and involve the children. Each child in the household receives a grocery bag of Sunday school for the month. That is amazing.
Oh, isn't that? Yeah.
That's a church that's going above and beyond. Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, Katie, ready?
I'm kind of afraid of what this is going to be.
Anne.
Go ahead.
Anne says, I would love to hear Katie's youngest daughter tell the Jesse Tree story. It's going to be something
She would
else.
spin a yarn.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about Jane. Right?
Jane. Yeah.
She's the character. She's going to do big things for the kingdom. We're all praying for her.
I know.
For her mother, please. Please pray for her mother.
For those of you who are not friends with Katie, you absolutely have to be friends with her on the internet. You give me a laugh every single day. And I'm so glad I'm way beyond that stage of having little kids. Her daughter she's unique. She's absolutely unique. So Katie does a great job of, and she said this today. And of course you read it. And if you've ever been a parent, you're cracking up because it makes no sense. Or it's the most insightful. Some of the things she says, I'm thinking, whoa, okay, that's pretty.
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Yes.
But you will get a chuckle. So you really need to friend Katie because it's wonderful.
Maybe what we'll do, we'll print out the ornaments again because as I was putting up these examples to take pictures of, I noticed almost all of the hole punch pieces are broken. So it's time for a fresh set. Maybe we'll write some comments on the back of each of ours.
Oh, please. And you have to share any of those.
Pat says, and you can use many resources for coloring. Oh yeah. Crayons, colored pencils, gelatos, watercolors, markers. The sky's the limit. You can do it. And if you are feeling super creative, you can take Katie's illustrations as just a launching point. Fabric, paint them. Oh, I had an idea. It didn't actually happen, but we always get a real Christmas tree. I was going to dry out the Christmas tree, cut them into like wooden like disc slices, and then paint them on. That was ambitious. It never actually happened. But it was a cool idea.
It's a cool idea.
To have wooden ornaments.
Let me just explain to you. You know, you can just go buy that. They're already dried, kiln dried, and everything.
But I am a sucker for. I'm so frugal.
It sounds really good, but do you understand that they'd have to dry out? And
well, I got to that point. The discs are all made. It's the painting of the thing. Yeah. Oh no, we did get further than you thought we would.
Carbon paper. That's the next.
That's
step.
what I should do.
Okay, she's just taking on way too many things. Okay.
Do you want to do this one?
All right. Pat says, love that honest sharing about writing devotions and drawing images. If you have the desire, practice, and God will bless your creative efforts. Absolutely.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, we bring our two fishes and 5 loaves, and God does abundantly more. Mm-hmm. But if we had held back those 2 fish and 5 loaves, someone else would have been able to do abundantly more. So we feel blessed that we can be a blessing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I loved what you said. And I want to make sure everybody hears this very clearly. Yes, they may have been artists. Yes, she thought she could write and all that stuff. However, they practiced. No, they practice. You just didn't start writing the level of devotion that you can write today, 7, 8, 10 years ago. Did you know? Because you've built up to that. It's the same. People look at my work and they say, oh, I could never do it. Well, if I've been doing it for 15 years, do it for 15 years. Show me what you do in 15 years. So it's a continual process that the Holy Spirit can work in you, and you can learn and do things, but you have to practice.
Right. Music is a great parallel with that. If you practice music or your craft or cooking or athleticism, anything that you are devoted to and are working at, boy, God can do amazing things.
He sure will. Okay, you're going to love this one. You ready, Katie? I'm having fun tonight. Go ahead.
Pat says, I keep telling Katie that I'm ready to pre-order the book of Jane Conversations. They make me smile every day. I'm a firm believer that joy shared is doubled and sorrow shared is halved.
Ooh,
this is why I share.
I like that. Just put that on a canvas or a t-shirt.
Oh, look what Ann said.
Oh, yeah. Ann
You're going to buy a copy of your book.
I'd buy a copy. You got 2 buyers.
There we go. Let's wait till Jane's in kindergarten all day, every day.
Connie says, I think Jane's book is a new resource in the making. There you go.
That's true.
Absolutely. So obviously you can tell if you don't see how we're all laughing and we're so full of joy talking about her wonderful, beautiful little girl, you have to friend her, because you will have to every day. I'm like, I wonder what she's going to post today. And it's so random. And I just love when you have little kids like that. Yes, and they say these things. Whoa, what? Okay. And you know what I have to say, very honestly, you're a really good mother, Katie. Because I can remember when my children were young and they would say things, I wouldn't always tell you. I was like, oh, that's so profound. I would be, wait, what? What are you talking about? So she is a very well-loved little girl. And, that's kind of really fun part to do that. So. Well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. Is there any other questions or any other comments? Because we're hitting our 43 minutes, and I told them we would be done early. I mean, we'd be done on time tonight. So, well, how about if you two just maybe wrap up? What I'd like to hear, maybe each of you share a little bit about what have you learned or what did you experience throughout this process of creating this and actually implementing it? And then that'll be the kind of end of our conversation.
Do you want to go first?
Well, this was one of the first, I think this was the first big project we did.
We did together, yes.
Either singly or together. And at the time, I was like, that seems like a lot of work, Valerie. Are you sure?
I come to Katie with these like insane ideas.
Big
hey,
ideas.
Katie, what do you think about this? You think we can do this? And I always see her eyes, and she's like gauging, is this real? Is this not real? Is this happening?
Yep. But this was cool because we talked it through. We figured it out. We kind of divvied up the work. We brainstormed a little bit, and then we just did it. And this was the first time we were able to see a project that we were inspired to create actually come to be a thing.
To fruition. And to
be a blessing to others is just amazing.
And then for Pat to take it and color it, and for our translators to take it and put it into Spanish.
It was all very cool to see how God used that, because at the time we didn't feel like it was going to happen.
We were kind of doing it for our own families and thinking that, hey, this is, it was so visual faith oriented. It was such low hanging fruit. The idea of a Jesse tree, to be able to look at ornaments and remember the story of Jesus. And then to be able to make it available to our visual faith community for free is just this gigantic blessing. So yeah, I would second what Katie said. If nothing else, for us, it was a learning experience of, hey, if God places something on your heart, if the Holy Spirit is saying, hey, I'd like you to do this, he'll make it come to fruition and bless it abundantly.
Well, that's wonderful. It's so great. Well, as I said, I don't think we have any other, wait, hold on. Put my glasses back on so I can actually see. There might have been 2 more comments. 1 second. Oh, okay. Here we go.
Connie says, and we are so thankful for VFM coaches that take risks. See, you never know. Try something new and bless us all. Yeah, sometimes you gotta take a risk.
You have to. And here's a great way to say good night. Jenny thanks us for a very fun evening. I've had a really good time with both of you. And like I said, you were the first that I've actually had 2 people in the studio on a Tuesday night. And the fact that you lived together, I was hoping I was going to get two little pictures of you and I could try out all my little buttons in here, and I can't, but it worked out really, really good. So
we're glad to do it. Hey, thank you, Diane. Thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. So we've had a wonderful time. So what I'm going to do now, hold on 1 second. Let me get to the right screen. Thank you very much, Katie and Valerie. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us, the 38 people that we've had on this evening. Hopefully you've been inspired by this wonderful conversation. And hopefully this is something that may fit into your life. The goal was not to give you something else to add to a to-do list that would stress you out. The goal was to help you and it's always our goal at Visual Faith Ministry, is to give you resources that can help you draw closer to God, you individually, as well as your family, and maybe even in your job, whether you're a teacher in a regular school or a school of faith, whatever. So thank you for this evening. Join us next week for conversation, encouragement, and inspiration. And as always, we have lots of follow-up conversations, and they're in our Visual Faith Facebook group. So if you're not part of that group, please go there and join us. We would love to have you. We thank you and have a good evening.